like many people still don't know what hospice or palliative care or advanced care planning, what those things are. And so some people assume that accepting these services means, giving up. And so when you come from folks who were all about survival, it's like, how do we survive and how do we carry on and push forward? When we start talking about hospice care or palliative care, there's this instant fear that, people are going to think I gave up.
Death doula and author Darnell Lamont Walker believes that storytelling, whether for kids or those facing life's hardest transitions, creates space for safety, belonging, and connection. Hi, I'm Helen Bauer, and this is the Heart of Hospice podcast. The Heart of Hospice podcast is your source for compassionate and informative discussions about hospice and end-of-life care. I'm a certified hospice and palliative care nurse with over 15 years of experience. Whether you're a caregiver, someone with a serious illness, or you simply need to know more about hospice care, this podcast is for you. Join me as we explore all the aspects of hospice, from the details of caregiving to the emotional and spiritual dimensions of end-of-life journeys. For more resources and to connect with me, visit theheartofhospice.com and find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Keep listening for today's episode.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest, and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
This episode is sponsored by Hospice Navigation Services. When you need information about hospice, Hospice Navigation Services is here to help. An expert navigator will answer your questions about end-of-life care and give you the tools to feel confident in your decisions. A hospice navigation session is a great way to troubleshoot your current hospice care. It's your journey. We can be your guide. Visit hospicenavigation.com to schedule your hospice navigation session today.
Today's guest, Darnell Walker, is a death doula and an Emmy-nominated children's television writer, a filmmaker, and a teacher. He's worked in the end-of-life space as a hospice volunteer, a caregiver, an end-of-life doula, and a transition guide, helping the dying as a warm and comforting presence as they face the unknown. You can hear Darnell's stories in his new book, Never Can Say Goodbye, The Life of a Death Doula and the Art of a Peaceful End. He and I talked today about the importance of advanced care planning, and we highlight a chapter from his new book that illustrates the value of those end-of-life conversations. Darnell shared his thoughts with me on how communities of color utilize end-of-life care less often and why he thinks this is happening. He also talked about what he learned from his grandma as he grew up and how it influences his work today. We also discussed the pain that happens when relationships are difficult, ways to handle this type of grief, and then he shared a true story of a pretty unusual eulogy that he heard given at a funeral. There's a lot to learn from Darnell Walker. I would encourage you to check out his book, Never Can Say Goodbye, The Life of a Death Doula and the Art of a Peaceful End, and visit his website to connect with him, darnellwalker.com. Check the show notes for the link, and stay with me for this great conversation. There's a lot to learn. It is so great to have you back on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here again.
It's going to be fun. I've been looking forward to this. We've had some cancellations. I had to cancel on you, I think, a couple of times. So I'm glad we finally got ourselves together.
No, absolutely. And I had to cancel that one time. So we're finally here and it's all right.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I'm so excited about your new book. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I could barely get through spots of it for how moving it is, but it's amazing. And so we are going to get started with a question from the End of Life deck.
Yeah, right.
And I picked this on purpose, okay, because I want to talk about advanced care planning. And it's sort of become a thing we do on every show. And I think it's always a topic worth talking about. And you do talk about it a lot in your book. So here's your question, Darnell Walker.
Okay.
What's a story or song that you hope is shared at your funeral or celebration of life?
Ooh, what's a story or song I hope is shared at my funeral or celebration of life? I love music. That's the best way I could put it. I love music, and I have a playlist. I have a death playlist of the songs I want to hear at the end of my life, but also when people are gathered to talk about me or remember me, and it's a lot of my songs that I love, and the main song on there is called. Not even called, but the one song that I'm like, as I'm dying, I need someone to time it just right. So this song is playing, and I die on the last note. But that's Red Dust by James Vincent McMorrow. But a lot of the songs have been songs I've collected from other folks because when I travel and I talk to people about death and dying and whatnot. This is a question that I love to ask too. It's like, what's a song you want to hear as you're dying and you want people to listen to and remember you? And they'll give it to me and I'll add that to the list. And it helps me remember them. Like I think most of the songs on there, I remember who told me that song and where they told me that song. And so just push play on the playlist and let it spin.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the story of each of your clients becomes part of your story.
It becomes part of that. It's I get to remember them and honor them as well through that music. I think we carry on, there's that one quote, if art decorates walls, music decorates time. And so it's sort of like I listen to the song and I remember who I was with and when and what we were doing and and it sort of brings you back to that good place when you first heard it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, so you are actually going to have somebody who's designated to really pay attention to what's happening with you physically, because we know timing is everything.
Oh. Everything. And I needed to be like, okay, it looks like he has 3 minutes and 53 seconds left.
And that's how long the song is.
It's probably around there. It's like push play, and God forbid there are commercials on like
no ads
or something. No ads. It has to go straight into the music.
That's hilarious. You better find somebody really responsible for this.
And I'm sure I won't. And I'm sure I will be disappointed in those last moments of life.
I love it. I love it. Well, I chose that question intentionally because I think that's a cool thing. And for some people, music is really meaningful, really moving. And I think it's just as moving for the people who are gathered.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's important. But one of the reasons I pulled it is because I was reading your book, your brand new book, which is beautiful, Never Can Say Goodbye, The Life of a Death Doula and the Art of a Peaceful End. Mm-hmm. And one of the stories really hit me. You write about Letta and Ethan. Mm-hmm. Letta and Ethan. And I wanted to highlight this because Ethan's story was not about advanced care planning because he refused to discuss it. He got a terminal diagnosis and he wouldn't talk about it. or I'm sorry, it was Ethan's father. Ethan's father would not allow it. It said even when it was clear he didn't have much time left, he would change the subject. And so his son said every decision we made was behind his back.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it really struck me. So they had these whispered conversations where he couldn't hear. And when he died, they still had a lot of decisions, but his son said it felt like we were doing him a disservice, but he never gave us the chance to do it right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see it, and it's heartbreaking how often I see that, like how common that story is.
Right.
The number of people I meet, and not just in this work, but in life. Like I will talk about death everywhere and with anyone, especially if they find out what I do. And I'll ask, like, have you talked about it? Do you talk about it with your family, with your wife, with your husband? And the number of people who say, oh, I'll be dead, they'll figure it out. Or, it blows my mind. And I'm like, that's cruel. That's a very, and not just to them, but to you. You're going to miss out on an incredible goodbye that you can have. Like, I feel like goodbyes are so important. Even as someone who I will leave a party without telling anyone goodbye. But as far as like life goes, I feel like that's such an incredible thing that you're missing out on, and the love you get to have and be surrounded by with your family when that end is coming. And so when you do that, it's denying them, and the grief can become so hard, and not just the grief, but you can't even get to the grief properly until all the things you didn't want to discuss are figured out. And so, you die, and then the family scrambling for the next 2 weeks, playing a guessing game before they can even hold each other up.
Yeah.
And then we get to the grief, and then we get to the mourning. And by that time, we're so exhausted and tired of being around each other that we want to separate, and we go home and we go through this alone.
Yeah.
So we have to talk. We have to talk about these things and join in on those conversations, even long before the crisis or that threat of death. We have to have those conversations.
And we should have them long before a crisis. Before a crisis.
Absolutely. Like I've been talking about it since I was a kid with my grandma. And so when my grandma was dying, like I knew what I wished I could have done. I didn't have the means to do so, but I knew when it was time to give her the permission she needed to go, because I knew that's not the body or the life or the situation she wanted to be in, because of conversations we had. Me and my mom, we literally just spoke about it yesterday, because she's now the caregiver for my grandma. And so, my mom having those conversations makes it so much easier. Like I know when she dies, it will be, oh yeah, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. And I'll be grieving, but it will be so much easier. And we've been talking about it since I was probably 9 or 10 with my mom, and even my son long before that, so we have to.
It's the difference between making decisions and following directions, which may not sound like a big deal, but when you're grieving and you're exhausted, if you've been a bedside caregiver, all of those things, man, that makes a huge difference. The decision's already been made. All I need to do is follow the roadmap. I'm just following direction. Yeah.
Tell me what to do, because it's one of those things where we don't know. My mom's never died, so I don't know what I need in this moment. I don't know, this person. I've never lost this person. And some people who've never experienced a death at all, and it's like I have no idea what to do. And so, but here's this thing. Here's this list. It's like when that substitute teacher comes in the room, and it's like, oh, what am I? Oh, I got this paper here. We're going to do this. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this. Bam, we're done.
Right.
And so it's it's care, and it's I care enough about you to want it to be easier for you when I'm gone.
I like that. I know that you do a lot of educating, a lot of teaching. You're an end-of-life doula. You're an educator. One of the unique things is about you is that you're a male, for one thing. There are definitely more female doulas than there are male doulas, but you're also a person of color. And communities of color have typically, historically in the U.S., lower engagement with end-of-life care, with hospice care. What are the challenges that you are seeing in communities of color these days when it comes to engaging in those services?
Yeah, not just these days. I think it's just, long-standing. Growing up in the healthcare system, I was a sick kid. I had a surgery when I was like 2 months old, and then moved throughout that system, and then watching family too. But I think one of the biggest challenges, is trust, right? Like, so many communities have experienced discrimination in healthcare, so people can really be hesitant to engage with end-of-life services because of how because they are connected, even when it's not in the hospital setting, and it's still like, oh, but that's still a doctor, and I grew up not wanting to trust them for a good reason. Another challenge is that many of us weren't raised talking about death openly, at least. With my grandma, it was literally me and her. The rest of the family said, I don't want to talk about this. And I come from a really big family. But we do talk about living, we talk about surviving, and we talk about taking care of the family. But conversations around dying can often happen only when there's a crisis. And then we're forced to talk about it. It's like, oh, well, so-and-so is sick, or they have cancer. And it's oh, we should do something. And what should we do? And again, it goes back to that whole thing of like, well, now we're playing a guessing game because we never talked about it. But then there's also like this lack of awareness. Like, many people still don't know what hospice or palliative care or advanced care planning, what those things are. And so some people assume that accepting these services means, giving up. And so when you come from folks who were all about survival, it's like, how do we survive and how do we carry on and push forward? When we start talking about hospice care or palliative care, there's this instant fear that, oh, people are going to think I gave up, or people are going to think that, I'm not going to fight this thing. And I think also, most importantly, people want care that respects their culture and their faith and their family values and traditions. And so when end-of-life care feels personal and culturally relevant, families are much more likely to engage with it. But we go into systems that feel like they've built this one-size-fits-all thing. And it's sort of, we don't feel seen in this environment, and that's important. But that also goes back to the trust, because I can't trust you until I know that you've seen me. And so, I think it's not that we avoid it because we don't care. I think we just need the information and the trust and the support that's delivered in ways that feel familiar and respectful.
Yeah, I think the mistrust thing goes across a lot of cultures and a lot of communities. When you look at the LGBTQ community and people of different faiths, humanists, there is some concern from them. There's some fear from them that the care they're going to be getting is coming through a lens of a certain religion or a certain bias. Right? If you have a brain, you have a bias. So, I can see the reputation that we have earned in the healthcare community is justified, right? It belongs to us. And so the distrust that people of color have of us, it's well-deserved. What do you think about all the talk about fraud these days? Because there's a lot of talk about hospice fraud on the part of the federal government and what they're doing to correct that, hopefully. Do you think that's influencing how anybody is engaging with hospice care?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, we're not talking about hospice care so much, but we're also looking for ways we're looking for reasons to not engage with it too. And so you get that news and you hear about fraud that's happening, and it's like, oh, see, this is why I don't trust. This is why I'm not doing it. Because and it's not everywhere. It's it's not every hospice. It's not every hospice worker. It's not any of that. But that's another reason to say, oh, see, this is why I don't trust that, and this is why I'm not going to focus on it. So it's absolutely influencing the conversation or the lack of conversations that's happening. And again, I think it's just access to that information and being able to connect with the folks. Because like I love you brought up with the LGBT community. Jamie Thrower, who runs like the Queer Grief Club, out in Portland. Like, it's amazing work she's doing, because again, we know that there are communities who find it hard to trust the system. And so thankfully there are people in place to say, listen, yes, but but I'm here and I can help you navigate this, and not saying I'm gonna, it's a cure-all, but it's definitely amazing support. And that's important.
And personalized support.
Personalized support.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Whatever
Absolutely.
your death and dying experience and the grief experience, the grief support that you get afterwards, all of that needs to be personalized. If you lose a child, a parent, a spouse, disenfranchised grievers, things like that, it makes so much difference to have support that really feels like it's customized to you. The disenfranchised grief is a conversation that I've been having quite a bit these days, because we're even getting away from using the term loved one, because not everybody's caring for a loved one.
Yeah.
Yeah. You may be caring for someone you think is a total jerk, but the grief support that you get. Yeah. I was going to say a-hole, but there you go.
There you go.
But the grief support that you get is all this flowery stuff. I'm so sorry for your loss. And, it's a bad fit. It's a bad fit. And I think we do grievers a disservice and make them feel diminished and isolated when we're providing support like that. Darnell is going to tell you how his grandma influenced the work that he does as a doula today after the sponsor break.
This episode is sponsored by Hospice Navigation Services.
If you or someone you care about is dealing with a life-limiting illness, you need a guide. Hospice Navigation Services is here to help you get the best end-of-life care possible. We understand the importance of personalized, experienced support. Hospice navigators provide one-on-one support over the phone or through video calls to guide you every step of the way. They'll answer your questions, explain what hospice care looks like, and give you the tools to feel confident in your decisions. Whether you're planning ahead or you have an urgent need, Hospice Navigation Services helps you and your family understand your options for end-of-life care. A hospice navigation session is a great way to troubleshoot your current hospice care and get answers to your questions. You don't have to go through this alone. You deserve compassionate support and guidance for your end-of-life experience. Hospice Navigation Services can be your guide. To book your hospice navigation session and receive your free guide to end-of-life care, visit our website at hospicenavigation.com. It's your journey. Hospice Navigation Services can be your guide. So your granny was a huge influence in your care that you give people, and the teaching that you do now. What piece of advice did she give you that you use every single time you work with a client and a family? What was her wisdom?
She showed me more than she told me. She definitely told me how she wanted to die. But watching her, like, I learned everything by watching. I was an observer. I'm still an observant person, but I was like a very curious kid. I wanted to know everything, and I was always with her. And so I would say the biggest thing I picked up from her was how to listen, really, how to be present for people. And it wasn't something I even paid attention to until I was an adult and I started doing this work with intention. And I look back and I say, oh, I learned this from my grandma. Like she did this. This is how she went into those rooms where her friends and those family members were. This is how, and it wasn't always about death. Sometimes it was about letting the neighbor come over and cry and letting the neighbor come over and use the phone and make a long distance call because she knew how important that was, and how my grandma just, she walked into rooms before she even talked to the person. She's like, oh, I need to make them this. I need to cook this for them. I need to go in with this. And I was like, oh, that's what that looks like. That's what being present looks like. That's what care looks like. And so I learned all of that by watching her. But most important, it was definitely the presence. And I didn't know it was presence at the time, but I knew whatever it was that brought all these people there, because she was she was the house that everyone came to, and from minute to minute, it could change into something completely different. Like we were playing cards. She had the house where people came to play cards. She had the yard people would sit in to just talk, and then it could turn into a grief session in the living room at any moment. There was a garden in the front yard where people would garden. And I knew whatever brought those people there, I wanted to do that too. And then I realized now, like, oh, it was because she was very much there and listening. And it was just it was beautiful to watch. And even now, my friends who grew up in the neighborhood, and I see some of the adults still, and they say, oh, I really miss your grandma. I really miss your grandma's house. And I'm like, me too. And some of them I forgot even came up there, friends who they're like, oh yeah, remember when we were 5 and your grandma babysat me that one time? And I'm like, no, I don't remember that. And they're like, I never forgot that. Oh, wow. And that's what it is.
I love it that she made such an impression. She left such a legacy, not just through your work, but through your family and friends there like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I see, like the work I do, but also I'm looking at the other folks who grew up in that neighborhood, who lived in that neighborhood, who became, when she died, it was like, well, who's going to take over some of this? Or does it die with her?
Yeah.
And you see that some of her friends who weren't that way before she died, they stepped up and became partly that. It's like, oh, like I can go home now, and one of her best friends, I go to her house when I go home, and she's like, whenever you come back, I'm going to cook you some food. I'm going to make you some hamburgers and gravy and fried potatoes like your grandma used to do. And then I'll go over and I'll stay the night, and she'll cook, and we'll just sit and talk. And it's like being at my grandma's house again.
That's awesome. But don't you think you're doing some of that, Darnell? Because you travel and you tell people, come travel with me, and you've got a cabin, and you're like, come chill at the cabin and spend time, just downtime. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. Like I do think that I am doing that. I see myself, and it's like, oh, I became the person I wanted to be. Like I wanted to be a grandma. I was like, I want to be a grandma when I grow up, because of her. And now I've done that. Like I have the house that friends will call and say, hey, are you home? I'm like, no, but there's a code on the door. Oh, I just want to be in the space. Or if you're home, I want to come up there and just sit with you for a while by the water. Okay. People want to travel, with me, and I take people into the world, and I can be present with them and really show them some care and some love and TLC, and it's an incredible thing to now look back and say, oh, I did become that person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the legacy. You said you were watching her the whole time. That's what you saw in action. It's pretty amazing. I want to dip back into the book because there are so many stories we can't even begin to talk about all of them. But talking about grievers, and it made me think of what you said about your grandmother. It would be 1 minute it was a garden for people to garden, and then the next minute it was a place for people to gather and talk about whatever. And then if it turned to grief, then that was part of it, or they came to play cards and she would cook food because somebody needed it, that kind of thing. Finding those, it's that individualized care, right? It all goes back to paying attention to watching people and listening to who they are and honoring that instead of providing this one size fits all. It's the difference between, I was describing it the other day, it's like getting a pair of jeans. And any woman who's listening knows that finding the perfect pair of jeans is the bane of any woman's existence, right? High-waisted barrel jeans, high-rise, whatever kind of jeans you like. But the grief support we provide is one size fits all. And the truth of it is, it doesn't. It doesn't fit everybody. So you write a chapter called Speaking Ill of the Dead. And this goes back to that disenfranchised grief. It was a woman, I'm not sure how to say her name, but she described her dad as the shittiest dad and that he wasn't, in general, just a great person. And you talk about working with her and listening to her. And you have a quote that you share from, is it Annie Lamont? You say, you own everything that happened to you. Tell your stories. You own everything that happened to you. Tell your stories. If people wanted you to write warmly about them, then they should have behaved better.
Amen.
I absolutely love that. And the reason I want to highlight that is because how valuable is it for a griever to be told, just grieve however the hell you feel like grieving?
Yeah. And I think, you brought it up just a little bit earlier, talking about how lonely and isolated you can feel. Like that, you have all this stuff in you, and the way death and dying have made saints of people who didn't deserve it, is so unfair to the grievers who have to show up to the funeral, to the bedside with the truth. And now they feel like they can't speak it because these people have built this person up and put them on this pedestal that now, I should just keep quiet. And so now I'm stuck with all this. I might die early now or what, because I'm holding so much inside.
Yeah.
But no, and even as a writer, like I tell my writing students whenever I have them that, they say, I want to write about my family, but I'm afraid to. I want to tell this story about so-and-so, but I don't know if I can. It's going to hurt them. And I'm like, listen, no, it's not for you to carry that burden. And so that to the griever too, you don't carry that. That's not for you to hold on to. You have to let that go. So if it means showing up to the bedside and telling them you hurt me, they know they hurt you. It's not a secret to them either, And so, and a lot of times they don't want to die knowing that you're going to carry that around. And that's not all the time, but whether that's true or not, you still deserve to go and tell the full story and to get this thing out that you want to get out. And I push that, and a lot of the calls I get from people, this is a lot of the calls I get. It's always, my dad's dying. I don't know if I should show up. What do you think? And I'm like, well, why not show up? And they'll say, well, I was hurt over years. We didn't have a great relationship. We didn't have this. We didn't have this. I don't recall a time where he cared for me or I even felt loved. Well, go say that. Go talk about that. I have a client now who's taking care of her mom, and they've never had a relationship. And the relationship they had while she was growing up was very painful for her. But she's like, I'm the only one who can do it. And it's hard, but I'm doing it. And I'm like, make sure you get it out and talk to her about that. There's still time to have those conversations. And maybe she wants to have it too. Like in the book, there was the one mom who, she wanted her daughter to come because she wanted her daughter to be angry and to get that anger out, because she know when I die, they will have no place to go. And I want you to get that out. And sometimes selfishly, because I need to feel better about the hurt that I caused you too. But it's real, and it's not fair, and for us to have to hold that in. So I say, speak ill of the dead if you need to.
Yeah. I don't know that you need to get up at the funeral and say a bunch of hateful stuff.
No, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I remember.
Yeah, we've all heard those eulogies, and you want to raise your hand and say, I'd like to refute that last point that you made, because I don't think that's accurate. Yeah. I mean, those saintly eulogies, they're hard to hear.
There was a film I watched years ago about this pastor, a biopic, true story, about this pastor in the South. This man dies. He was an awful man, awful human being to his family, to his wife. His wife begged the pastor to let them have the funeral at the church. And the pastor says, well, he wasn't a member here, whatever. And she begs and begs. And he says, okay, fine. And she says, could you do the eulogy? And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. And so the time comes, the body's in the front, the whole family's there, the neighbors and everyone agreed that this man was not a good man. So the pastor gets up and he just stands there and he looks around and he says, you live like a dog, you die like a dog. Amen. And sits down.
And that was it?
And that was it. That was the eulogy.
Ouch.
Like, But if he wanted better words, he should have behaved better.
I love that.
And it's I don't know. I would never tell someone not to go to a funeral and say it. If that's where you feel you need to get it out, go for it. I think it could be done much sooner, and you don't have to go to the funeral if you don't want to go to the funeral.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I think there's a lot of social expectation of other people's grieving behaviors. Yeah. So, Darnell, I want to talk a little bit more about where people can find your book, but I want to ask you one question. What questions are you still asking yourself about dying after all these years of working in this field?
Yeah, I want to know, we don't know when we're going to die. And that's the hard part. I don't want to die now. I'm not afraid of death, but right now I don't want to die. But I want to know, will I get to that point? I want to know, will I get to the point where I'm ready to go? I want to know, how I can help start these conversations. Like I'm still in a family that won't talk about it.
Even after all the work and
oh no, I have family members who will never open this book and see what's in there. My dad included, and so it's why. And so I'm still that curious person. I'm still that person who likes to pull things apart and study it. And so I'm still figuring out why. And slowly, one by one, I'm getting them in there. Like now, my aunt and uncle who didn't talk about it when my grandmother was alive, she's my grandma's daughter and her husband. We're having conversations now, and he's telling me about the times he had to come face to face with his own mortality, where 14 years ago that wasn't happening. And so it's okay. Slowly, I'm breaking them down, but I'm always asking, why? How can I make this better for people? And because we're so alone, we are still so very much alone. And so I'm always asking, how can I make it so we're not? I'm always pushing people to go into spaces where they're allowed to just be present, if that's possible, with with the patients, with the dying, with people who may not be in crisis, but just to have a conversation. And so for me, it's why am I, will I get to the point where I'm ready, where I'm like, now's good,
Yeah. Let me know when you get to that point, because that's.
I do.
Do we get to that point?
I think we do. I've had so many people, and not necessarily. I've had a couple of clients not many, but I've had so many people in my life, or my friends' grandparents or their older family members who get to the point where they're like, I had a great life, but I have no idea why I keep waking up. you
Yeah.
know, any moment, any moment it'll happen, and they are seemingly healthy. They're moving through life. Everything's okay, but they're like, I could go, and it's fine. And I'm like, that's where I want to get to that point. I want to I want to be there when it's time to go.
Yeah.
And right now, I feel so far from it. I love this life. I love what I've been able to create, and I want to see more of it. I want to eat more food, but when it's time, I want it to be time.
I like that. Okay. Never Can Say Goodbye. Love the cover, by the way. Looks like two doves.
Mm-hmm.
The Life of a Death Doula and the Art of a Peaceful End. Where can people connect with you, and where can they get your book?
Yeah, you can connect with me at darnellwalker.com. I'm on Instagram at Hello Darnell. And the book, I believe in supporting our local bookstores and going in, but also I go to bookstores often and I sign them secretly and don't tell the bookstore. So if you go in and find it, there are Barnes and Nobles all over Atlanta right now that have signed books.
I love that. I love that.
A lot of fun. And just other bookstores too. If I go in and I see my book, sometimes I'll ask, sometimes I'll just sign it secretly and just put it back on the shelf. But I love going into local bookstores and supporting them, keeping them alive. I love the smell of bookstores. And so, but also wherever you buy your books, Audible too. It's on Audible if you'd rather hear me read it to you. Although I don't like listening to my own voice, but I hear that it's pretty good. I hear that the Audible is pretty good. And so I will never know personally, but you can find it there. And I'm still touring. I'm still out and popping up with the book and having conversations. I love talking about it. I love talking about death and dying and how we can have these conversations with our own families.
Awesome. Yeah, following you on Instagram, checking out your social media will tell people where you are and who you're talking with these days.
Absolutely.
Darnell, thank you so much for spending time with me today. Congratulations on the new book. I love the story and the legacy that you're creating. It's grown out of everything you watched your granny do, but now it's all you, and it's pretty amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thanks for listening to the Heart of Hospice podcast. Check out our sponsor in the show notes, and please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. We would appreciate it if you would share this episode with your friends and family and anyone who needs to know more about hospice. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, no matter who you are or where you are in your hospice journey, you are the heart of hospice.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.